We are live once again. Thank you so much for joining us. And today I have with me David Childerley coming to us from the UK. And David is a very successful healer. He has a business that generates over six figures, so over $100,000. We're going to find out how he was able to do that and how he's able to attract his clients. There are a lot of healers out there who have a great mission, a great purpose, but unfortunately they're having a tough time attracting the right clients, and right clients being clients who are not only there to get the help that you have to offer, but also willing and able to pay. So David, thank you so much for being the guest today.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be on back.
Excellent. So first off, David, I'm going to have to ask, were you always a healer? Because sometimes you meet people and it's something that they knew when they were 15 or 20. Were you always a healer, or was that a transitional career for you?
I wouldn't call it a healer. I was always a communicator. So as a little child, I was always talking and expressing and communicating a lot, and that fed through to my career when I was older. And I came from business coaching into more personal coaching side of it. So my background was business coaching, but then when I faced a crisis in my life, I changed a different direction and realized that I should be focusing on different areas. So that led me down a new journey, really, where I learned a number of different techniques and combined the business coaching with the personal coaching to help people become aware of what limitations they have within them. And a lot of the coaching is all based around that. So it's not about being a healer as such, but I always, as a child, spoke a lot, talked a lot, and I had a lot of empathy and compassion for others. I was a good listener. So that sort of led me into a career of always being in communications in some form, which is what I'm doing still now, really.
So it's interesting that you say you see yourself as a communicator, because I think that, you know, officially you would be an EFT practitioner and life coach, but I guess you're right. I mean, in terms of communicating and listening and able to have empathy for your clients, I mean, those are really key elements to being successful in what you do.
It's about sort of resonating with your audience, and one of the reasons I've been able to build a successful business is because I do come from a lot of experience, and you know, anyone who has had a tough younger start in this life tends to develop their empathy and compassion much earlier than others, and it leads them down a career path similar to what we're doing now, where we are communicating and sharing the knowledge that we've attained. But it is our journeys to this point that have sort of make us who we are. So it's about sharing that knowledge, getting it out there in an authentic and honest way. And if people resonate with that, then they'll want to work with you, they'll want to coach with you, they'll want to spend with you. So it's just about feeling good about what you're doing. We're all, in a way, a service to others. And whether we're working for somebody else or whether we're working for ourselves, we've all got bills. And it's just about accepting what you do and the path you've chosen, and then choosing to find ways to monetize that so you can live well. Because if you're not living well, you're no good as a coach, you're no good as a guide, or as a healer if you're poor and broke. And you know, so it's important that I'm in a good place, otherwise I can't really help anyone. So it's about helping.
But it's interesting what you said, but there's also a lack of congruency.
Well,
I mean, in the sense that if you are there to help people attain financial wealth, but you're not living it yourself,
yeah,
there's a congruency issue.
Well, if you're poor and broke and trying to teach abundance coaching, then you know you've got to walk the talk. You've got to be able to believe and trust in yourself. And I think a lot of people that there are a lot of healers out there, a lot of good people out there, but they don't have the worthiness value of themselves. They don't have any self-worth or self-value, and therefore when it comes to charging for their services, they feel guilty or shameful in some way, because they perceive what they're doing as helping somebody less fortunate than themselves. And that, to me, is judgment. They're not less fortunate or more fortunate, it's just choices they've made.
Yeah, they're a different spot in life, yeah.
all you can do is put the information out there, and people take from it what they want, really. And I just try and get it out there in lots of different ways, because lots of people learn in different styles.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that. You touched upon a really important point about a lot of gifted healers are out there, and they have this, calling, but unfortunately they either aren't able or don't feel comfortable charging for what they're worth, or even asking for money. And also oftentimes they struggle when it comes to putting their message out there. When you talk about putting your message out there, it's because you put your message out there that people find you, because although you are in the UK, you have an international clientele. And the only way you can have an international clientele is because you've put the feelers out there and people find you. So if you can perhaps share how you've done it so that you're so successful, and perhaps some of the healers or coaches or consultants out there watching this may start thinking and approaching their marketing differently.
Well, I started really about 6 years ago on YouTube, and I started with some free videos sharing some information, and I didn't really put it out there to start with because there was any money in it, because 6 years ago there wasn't really any money in YouTube, or the partner programs only just started. It was just about sharing information. But the fact that a few of my early videos became so popular, it helped me understand that there was a market, and that really I was doing the same as any, like authors. Authors don't feel guilty when they sell a copy of a book on Amazon or in the shop. People might say to a healer, how can you charge for your work when you're supposed to be helping others? But that's very judgmental, and a lot of healers get in self-judgment, and it's all a reflection of that. If you don't feel worthy inside of abundance, then that's going to be reflected all around you. And the way I what I realized early on, I realized there was ways to monetize what I was doing, but I also realized that I didn't feel good about the different ways I could monetize myself.
Okay.
There was a part of me that was saying, well, you're educating people who have been unwell or are suffering challenges in their life, and you should do it all for free. And I thought, okay, well, that's the sort of natural feeling I've got inside me, but what evidence is there out there to support that that's the right way to go? And then I looked at all the other scientific ways and all the other different authors out there and different sources of information, and you quickly realize that without the revenue coming in from book sales, a lot of the knowledge would never have been passed on over the years.
Absolutely.
And it allows the authors, the researchers, the academics to research and do what they do. But in the healing community, I think this may go back to church and other places, people have this belief that, you shouldn't have to have financial gain if you're doing a kind act or something.
Yes. If you're coming from your heart, then you shouldn't expect, money should not even be part of the conversation.
Yeah. But then the top heart surgeons in the world would do it for free. The top ENR surgeons that patch people up when they come in all bashed up after an accident, they would give their time for free, but they don't. They all make millions of pounds every year. They don't feel guilty about patching people up and getting paid good money for it.
I agree.
And the reason is because they're not charging the patient direct. It's all coming from a corporate entity. So, and it's like when we work for a corporate entity and we get our salary at the end of the month, we feel good about that. But if we've got to ask for that salary ourselves, or get bits of it from lots of people because we've helped them during the month. Could you imagine working for a corporate and every time you helped a client with an inquiry or problem, you bill them for like $10 because that's your time? It would never work. So when we work for other people, we accept the salary and we get on with it. But when we work for ourselves, we sort of don't feel worthy of asking for it. And that's just down to our beliefs, because there's a confliction in our beliefs about money, and life is tough, and all the limiting beliefs that come together with money. So, and also with most healers, there's been a time in their life when they haven't had much money and other people have helped them for nothing and given a part of themselves, and they feel indebted. They feel that's what they should be doing. But they soon realise that their bills aren't being paid.
Absolutely. You can't tell Visa, I'm sorry Visa, but I'm a healer, and I don't feel comfortable accepting money. Therefore, we should have the same kind of agreement. Although I've charged all of these purchases on my card, but you should not expect money because I'm a healer.
Well, you just said it there. You know, people don't necessarily, you know, you can always tell when somebody feels worthy because you throw them a compliment. Some people say thank you very much and take the compliment. They feel worthy of themselves. They know they're good at what they do. But when someone says, oh, it's no trouble, and or they dismiss it as nothing, or, you know, it was nothing, don't mention it, you know, or don't worry, there won't be no charge, no, have it on me. You know, every time you dismiss or put down a compliment thrown to you, there's a big giveaway there that there's something running in background, an old belief that goes back a long way that's triggering. So when you get a compliment, a lot of people get overwhelmed by it. I remember actually when I put my first early YouTube videos up, they got some very, very good comments, and I used to delete them.
Oh, really?
I used to leave the nasty comments up. The comments that said, idiot, what are you doing tapping yourself? I left those up. There's some nice comments, I deleted them because in a sort of funny, sad way, I was unworthy at that moment in my life. So
wow.
I didn't really believe what people were saying about me. I thought, they must be talking about somebody else. Delete. But now I don't. Now I feel genuinely humble and grateful, and you know that I've been able to share some information that's helped somebody. But in the
I'm
early
shocked,
days,
David, I'm absolutely shocked that you would say that, and thank you so much for being open. And I really love it when guests are that open, because sometimes when we look at somebody who's successful, we think, well, they've got it all together. They were born with it all together. Exactly.
We're human like everybody else, and we all have our own blocks. You show me the world's best teacher, best coach, I'll show you somebody who's still got stuff ongoing, which in a way is why they're still teaching, because if they got to the end of their enlightenment, they wouldn't need to teach anymore, because they would be fully satisfied that and in a place of neutrality, they'd be very calm and at peace with themselves. But the fact that I'm still coaching and teaching means I've still got lots to learn about myself. And when I work with other people and engage with and interact with other people, I see them all as reflections, showing me little bits of myself. But what I'm far more aware of now is the feedback loop. So 6 years ago, when I would delete a really nice comment from somebody, which was I mean, I know people who've got thousands of really good testimonials they never publish.
Wow.
Because they don't feel that worthy of actually putting them on their site. That they also have a belief that people won't believe me. They'll think I've made them up. The amount of business clients I've said to them, why haven't you got testimonials on your site? And they say, well, I've got hundreds, but they're in a box, sort of, you know, and I've just sort of printed them off and put them in a box. I said, well, they should be put up. That should be some of your proudest achievements. And when they say, and that indicates to me there's a belief running in background that they're unworthy. And until that's dealt with, until that limiting belief is dealt with, their business, everything will be sabotaged. So I look for clues in my business clients as to what limitations have you got running, why aren't you putting yourself out there like you pretend to? Because I refer to it as, there's a fabulous teacher, an English philosopher called Alan Watts, and in one of his lectures he used to pass a bit of embroidery round during the break, and everyone would pass it around. And the point of it was that there's one side that is immaculate, but when you flip it over, the back's a little bit of a mess, which is like most people.
Most people, yeah.
Great on the outside, we're all actors, we can switch into different... Great
mask.
You're different socially when with friends than with your grandparents.
Absolutely.
We play slightly different versions of ourselves depending on what we encounter. So we're all great actors, and we're all able to, you know, go into those roles. But everything on the inside is not always the same as on the outside. And even though people pretend to be successful on the outside and they desire it, sometimes there are a few limitations on the inside which they sort of have an awareness that they're running on a loop, but can't quite work out what to do to stop that pattern repeating. And it is just childhood beliefs that we...
Very, very true.
Great. I mean, I remember one of my clients, for example, when they were 3 years old, their older brother stole their pocket money. And then their older brother was 7 or 8, and my client was 3. And they said, if you tell mum or dad, you're dead. So my client had money linked with theft, linked with threats and intimidations, all at 3 years old, and off the back of that, he come to the conclusion it's my fault and I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of money because every time I get it, my brother steals it. Now, he doesn't remember that consciously, but in his unconscious mind, there is a limiting belief saying I'm not good enough to receive money at 3 years old. And as soon as I made him aware that this program was running in background since he was young, and that was the root of his sabotage, not the present moment. We don't sabotage ourselves in the present. It's old stuff repeating, old limitations. Absolutely. And what I do in my business coaching is help my clients identify not what's going on in the present, like the top of your tree, the canopy, but at a root level, what did you create in terms of your programs and beliefs when you were young that no longer supports you? Mm-hmm. And once we can get rid of them, then the sabotage in the now stops.
Okay.
And the abundance can flow, the opportunity and the potential can flow, because we're not on that old program that says we're not good enough connected to money anymore.
Okay, that's a really powerful story. I'm sure that many of your clients have that same, or same set of stories.
When we look at limiting beliefs, you see, you remember creating a program that said you could ride a bike. You remember creating a program that said you could drive a car. You remembered creating a program that said you might be able to speak a language. You remember creating them programs, but you don't remember what you created when you were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if they're connected to money or pocket money or other areas of worthiness, you're not going to remember that. Absolutely. In those early years. And what I find with my private clients, nearly all of them have a belief they created in the first 5 or 6 years of their life. And it's usually negative.
Been running them.
Yeah, it's negative and it's connected to money. And in the present, they're doing all they can to stop the sabotage. They're aware of it, but they just think, oh, no matter what I do, I come back to this place where I'm knowingly sabotaging myself. And that's why I work with a lot of people that have got home-based businesses, because their intentions are good in the present. They want to take control of their destiny. They want to provide for themselves. They don't want to draw paychecks from others. But something inside of them is on this loop, and it's making them feel, low self-worth, and it's not really from the present. And if you ask people to be honest and authentic, they'll say, yeah, that feeling's been there forever. And it is that slight not deserving, slightly not good enough, where I know we're all healers and it's about service to others, but at some level, we have got to put ourselves first if we want to be a good healer. Because if you're an exhausted healer or a stressed healer, what good are you to anyone?
Yes, I mean, and also that energy is going to be sort of fed. You're going to feed that energy. That's what I'm looking for. You're going to feed that energy to your clients as well.
Sabotage and judgment of money does not come from the present. That comes from how we interacted with money when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in a family that had loads of it and you were given loads of it, then you're not going to believe it's the root of all evil.
Absolutely.
But if you're in a family where it's scarcity and life was tough and everyone's working and there's a lot of stress, you are going to believe money is scarce and life is tough. And if that's running in background because you heard your grandparents, your parents constantly saying it, how many times does a child before the age of 10 hear that's too expensive? We can't afford it. Oh gosh,
millions of times. I mean, that's just what do you think we are, like made of money?
And then those children grow up, run a business, and wonder why they're sabotaging or never have enough clients, because they do think financially it's a tough game. And when you believe something's tough, that is how you will experience it. But when you change the belief, you get a different reality, a different response, really. So it's really about identifying the limitations and sort of being honest with the self on what's behind the embroidery.
And I think what you said is just brilliantly said, and I definitely believe that it is one of the biggest problems for most entrepreneurs, especially home-based entrepreneurs, and that's one of the reasons I think the statistic is 80% of small entrepreneurs generate $20,000 a year or so. Very, very, very small percentage of them are generating 6 figures plus. And it's, I've always said that when you go into business, it's the absolute best MBA, because you're not only learning about strategies and social media marketing, email and whatnot, which is important, but you start understanding a whole lot about yourself. Because at the end of the day, you can't run a business without yourself being part of the business. And that's when you either, you know, spin your wheel and don't realize that there's actually something blocking you from reaching goals and financially and sort of in your life in general that you're looking for, or you get that wake-up call and then you start looking for help. And that's usually when you start thinking, okay, let's hire a life coach, let's hire an EFT practitioner, let's hire a hypnosis therapist. That's really when you start going.
It's all part of the journey. The fact that we're leaving a corporation or somebody else who gives us a paycheck, and the fact that we're wanting to take responsibility and work at home indicates that in the present moment we're all okay. But we're sometimes fighting those programs in background that we created years ago. And even though we have good intention, we have good heart to build a business and to monetize ourselves, we find ways to sabotage, and we sort of know we're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's based on, you know, the belief system that we built when we were young. And sometimes you're too attached to the self, so you're not always aware of what, in your own everyday language, of what's going on. But as soon as you work with somebody else or a coach, they're able to point out the extreme obvious sometimes that you just miss because you overanalyzed yourself many times. So, you know, when I need to work on myself, I go and interact with others. I don't sit here and scratch my head anymore. I did that for a long time and just found myself going around in circles all the time.
I agree. So sometimes the best way to figure something out is just to lose yourself in nature. I say, like, go for a walk or meet with people. Absolutely.
Or you'll share something with a friend and they'll just say something and you'll go, oh, okay.
Different perspective.
And it makes sense, yeah.
Absolutely. I'd love to go back. Earlier, you said that you started promoting yourself or your business through YouTube. I'm sure somebody must be looking at this and going, okay, so what do? I just put up videos on my YouTube channel and magically people come to me and magically they decide to give me money? Because you've built your business where, first off, you did start early on YouTube. That makes a big difference because right now it's much harder to get any visibility on YouTube because there's so many videos uploaded every single minute. So that's a plus for you. But you also managed to package a lot of the content that you have out there so that you have packages at a fairly, I guess, entry-level price, so something that everybody can afford. And you I
go from free all the way up.
All the way up, and that's what I was going to say. And you also, on the other scale, have high-end coaching programs of several thousands of dollars or pounds, and you have clients for that. And then I do remember that on one of the videos I watched, you had like a waiting list for one of those high-end coaching programs. And I'm sure there's somebody sitting here thinking, wow, a few videos, free products, paid products, different price point, all the way to several thousands of pounds or dollars per month to work with you. How did you do it?
Someone said to me a long time ago, don't be afraid to give away free stuff. Just keep doing it, even though people tell you not to. You can never give away too much free stuff. So I think I was on YouTube for at least, I've probably uploaded at least 20 videos on YouTube before I'd decided how I was going to monetize myself. I'd uploaded and produced at my expense all those videos, promoted them, got them on there, and where I was 6 months later was, well, there's a demand, I now need to find a way to monetize it. Now, in the early days, EFT wasn't really that well known.
Absolutely not.
On YouTube.
Yeah,
and
or in the world in general.
Yeah, so my thought was, well, let's just make loads of free videos about EFT and try and devise a way where people can sort of practice along through a video coaching technique. And it became successful. So I then realized that because those videos were getting seen and were getting views, and I'll come on to how I was promoting them and circulating them in a minute, I quickly realized that those videos and the amount of views, because you think, you know, after a while you get 50 or 100 videos, and each day they get so many videos. Accumulative per day, that's a lot of views.
You mean every day they get so many views? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And if it's a video with good information on, people will share it. So the views count was good. And I realized that just by putting links under the videos, I could get a lot of free traffic and focus it on one website. So that gave me the idea to make a whole load of videos that I didn't produce for YouTube, that I produced for a separate membership site. So in the early days of YouTube, my strategy was, if I just keep making free videos with a little upsell at the end, if you want to know more, click the link below the video, then people would, if I give them something free and a snapshot of me, and if they resonate and like what they hear, then there's a choice to come and explore more of what I do. So I put a whole load of free stuff out there on YouTube. People then come to a membership site with an A to Z library covering health and emotions and all that sort of stuff. And that's only, what, $10 a month. So that's a very low entry level for people.
Yes.
It's very affordable.
Very affordable.
If people want one-on-one time, every summer I run these 3-month programs where over a 12-week period we work extensively on a weekly, daily basis, keeping weekly motivation, planning, strategy meetings, just keeping people moving forward. So if somebody is working from home, they could be a coach, a therapist, they could be building an online business, they might want to build a YouTube channel, they might want to set up a recording studio. I want to know all about that. I tend to work with people quite closely over that 3 months, and as you mentioned earlier, I give away a lot of free stuff. People can watch a couple hundred videos now on YouTube, so they get to know me quite well. That instills a bit of trust to then want to work with me, either
absolutely
a few bucks a month, a big library of videos they can work with at home when they want in private, or they can go the one-on-one journey and get a lot of time with me where I'll help them expand their current business. And most of my clients tend to be like where I was a few years ago and where you were. We tend to be at home with good heart, good intention, but it's finding that way that just monetizes it. And I always say to people, stop searching. That way is actually within you, and it's down to your own limitations. And when they're released, you will just radiate and attract opportunities, because that non-physical running in background sabotage will not be there anymore. Those old limitations won't be firing off. So, but to get that sort of result with somebody, it takes a few months of
work, of consistent work and commitment on both sides, on the client side.
Well, it is. I call myself the limiting belief detective. It's about, because everyone has their limitations in their own voice, in their way they write, the way they communicate. We all can tell a lot by listening to ourselves, and I think because I've filmed myself so many times, 1,300 videos now, and I've had to listen back to myself and edit them, I learned most about myself in the editing suite, going, did I really say that? Because when I hear myself back, I can hear my limitations. But when I'm talking in real time, you know what it's like. Sometimes we don't think it just comes out, and you don't always pick up what you're saying because you're listening to the other person. So you don't always pick up on what you said. It tends to just flow. But when you hear yourself back, you may notice that in some of your editings that you've learned a lot about yourself through watching yourself and learning about yourself.
Sometimes I'll question and I think, wow, did I actually say that?
But my personal experience was when I gave a lot of free stuff away and then promoted it on Twitter and Facebook and kept people aware that there was a constant source of tips and strategies and free information. When I then did present a higher priced product, I'd already established trust with my audience. And it's a choice, you want.
So had already had results with the lower priced products.
And free, and the free products.
Free. Oh, and free. Okay.
Most of my new clients, when they come on, I ask them how they found me, and they say, well, I've actually known you a couple of years on YouTube, and I've watched a few of your videos over the years, and I sort of got to know you a bit, really. And as soon as I felt that coaching was right for me at this time, I knew that I needed to check out what you were doing.
So that's quite interesting what you just said, because the client, the potential client, can actually be a free client, if I could use that terminology, for a number of months, if not even years, and they're just sort of getting to know, like, and trust you. And when it's the right time in their lives, because perhaps it's financially or just circumstances happen, and you realize, okay, I need help, then because they've had that opportunity to get to know you, get your know your material, the results, then they're ready to hire you.
Well, one of the key things I did on YouTube was in the early days when I put a lot of videos up, I answered people's comments. I invited them to private message me. I've done a lot of coaching, probably with a couple of thousand people over 6 years, in over 200 countries from around the world. My videos have been seen now. And I get a lot of emails, dear Mr. David, thank you for your videos, can you help with a personal issue? I usually end up answering them very briefly, pointing them in the right direction, sending them a link to another video they might not have been aware of. And I've done that for so long, and what I find is when I do get my 3-month one-to-one clients on board, that they turn out to be one of those people that have known me for more than 2 or 3 years on YouTube.
Wow, very, very impressive. If I can ask a couple questions about that, I don't know, again, it could be a ballpark, I'm not sure how comfortable you are. How much is that one-to-one session during the 3 months in the summer? We're talking about a couple of thousand pounds per month?
That's nearly $4,000.
For the three months?
Yeah. It's about just under $3,750. And we work with a lot of clients. We always speak on a Monday and Friday.
Okay. And is it just, it's one-on-one, so it's not like a group coaching that you're doing?
It's like we are now, but it may be for half an hour one time, the next time might be for a whole afternoon where we're working through some limitations.
So I have
business planning and strategy. It's like we're working now, but it's going to be on Skype or Google Hangouts, and it's going to be, you know, 7 days a week. You can leave me messages. 7 days a week. We can do this at short notice. We'll work out a business plan together. We'll work out the strategy. We'll work out what you need to do, where areas of your confidence lack, and what areas we need to work on. And we'll agree a plan for 3 months with a goal at the end. Where do you want to be? You know, what do you want to be manifesting by then? What do you want to be in place? You know, you've talked about it for a long time and you've sort of sabotaged yourself. Well, now with me on your case, there'll be no excuses. Together we'll work through it, and together we'll support each other, and I'll plant little seeds that will grow in your mind about opportunities maybe you hadn't realised, because whilst we sabotage, we do miss a lot of stuff that I call it, it's like our escargot of things we've asked for, and none of them tend to manifest until we move into harmony with them. When we become a match for our desires, they start manifesting. But to do that, we've got to feel good about ourselves. We've got to feel good about our connection with money. And I always say to people, when you're young and you have your first run-in with money, it can either be a positive thing or a negative thing. If your first experience with money is very positive and warm, there's a good chance you'll make good money in your life. But if your first experience with money and pocket money and siblings and, you know, siblings nicking your sweets or your toys or your money, you know, that sets a precedent really for what you believe to be true at that age. And if you don't give those old programs a shake, it's hard to resolve stuff in the present. Really tough. So the closer I work with somebody, the closer I get to know them, the quicker it is for me to work at the top of the tree and right, okay, that branch is an aspect and that's your financial issues, but it all goes down to that one root. And that root is when you were young and you've forgotten about it, and that's what we need to chop out.
Okay. And the other question I have, why only 3 months in the summer? Why not do this continuously throughout the year?
Well, I work on other projects. It's exhausting. I tend to go for, I have quite a mad 3 months of intense coaching. Then I take a few weeks off and go and spend it in the Mediterranean with the family. For the next 3 months, my son is on a intensive study for his GCSEs. So while his
GCSEs, which is university, pre-university?
It's just pre-university, yeah. And so, you know, he's doing a lot of work, a lot of study, and I tend to, for 3 months out of every year, I tend to work quite closely with a number of different people, and in that time I learn most about myself. But when I'm finished that, I then tend to do a lot of filming for the mygenie.tv site. I'm starting to develop other projects now, which is for the next 12 months and beyond, which is a lot of live work. I want to start working with live audiences again and doing some retreats.
Brilliant.
I want to combine some retreat work with some motivation and some limitation awareness stuff. So, you know, I've got to a point now where 6 years ago I invested a lot of my free time in building and making videos for YouTube, in the trust that in the future those videos would still be, I mean, my videos now will still be watched in 20, 30 years. So,
oh, absolutely. They're never going away.
If somebody
it's not
thinks
like a, it's
yeah,
not like
somebody
an
thinks
update
it's
on
too
Facebook.
late for YouTube, it's not. It's just about, you know, in the early days of YouTube, I would make a video, put it on YouTube, and then I would get the URL and I would go and share it on different EFT Facebook groups, to their annoyance sometimes. I would Twitter it, I would put it on all the different social networking sites, and go to all the forums for personal development. Even if it wasn't EFT, I'd still put it on there and say, here's something different, and then the moderators might take it down and say it's not appropriate, it's off subject. But I just kept sharing it and kept doing as much as I could to try and get the views up. And I think some people nowadays put a video on YouTube and expect it to get lots of views without too much intervention, let's say.
Absolutely. That's the biggest mistake. I think that people put a video on YouTube and they think it's going to go Gangnam Style. Not every video will have 2 billion views. And for those videos to go viral, there's an aspect of entertainment or silliness or cats or babies are involved. But when you're an entrepreneur and you're not going to have cats and babies and silliness in your videos, you have to make the effort to let the world know that your videos are out there.
That's right. I never bothered investing too much time in the other video sites. I just assumed in the day that YouTube would be the one.
It's King Kong.
And then as soon as Google acquired it, I knew it would probably be at the forefront of so I invested all my time in 3 key areas, really, and that was YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So those were your 3 top marketing strategies.
Yeah, I would just, you know, keep tweeting and Facebooking and sharing images with nice quotes on, or videos that I found on YouTube. I would go and share them with my fans on Facebook page, and 2 or 3 times a day I would spend probably a couple of hours and post at least 2 or 3 different things that would be of interest to somebody else. Just sharing this video, hope you get something out of it, and that builds up trust over time, and people get to like the sort of stuff you post, the sort of stuff you do. So when you do come out with a high-end offering that's got a lot more one-on-one support with it, those that are teetering on the edge of worthiness tend to invest. And because I only work with 5 or 6 clients every summer, you know, there's not that many places available. So, so
it is limited.
Yeah, it's something I love doing, but it is quite intense because, you know, I don't tend to work with people for more than 3 months, because if I do, I sometimes look at myself and get critical. Because in my book, it doesn't take more than 3 months to identify what's running in background and to sort it out.
Really? You know, so you found that for most of the clients that you've worked with, that short period of time was enough to, I guess, reprogram the way they sort of running their lives?
Not necessarily fully reprogram, but they will certainly have identified everything they need to know, and because I'm unable to think and feel for them, they do have to play some part in it. And if they do their homework and practice, and they make that commitment to themselves, and they're ready to relax and lighten up on themselves, then it works well for them. But I always try and scare people off by saying, you know, if you're not ready and you're getting secondary gain out of whatever it is you're holding on to, then come back another time, because I really want to work with people that are sick of where they are. I want to work with people who have had enough, they're bored, senseless, they want to make the breakthroughs, and they know they are only themselves to blame. I want the people who are ready just to let go of that elastic band, you know, and when you let go of that elastic band and you surrender and you give in to the self, you accelerate your development, and that's what I try and motivate people over 3 months. It can take 3 years if you do it yourself, like I did, but it took me 2 or 3 months when I started working with somebody else I admired and trusted and respected, because they were able to teach me stuff that I wasn't able to see in myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. That perspective again. Yeah, absolutely. So
and one of my talents, I suppose, is being able to be able to identify very quickly the roots and where they go back to. Because if your house is covered in ivy, you'll keep trimming the doors and the windows until someone tells you there's a root around the back of the house.
Yeah, and you got to pull it out.
You've got to go and pull it out. The people aren't always ready to face themselves, and I'll say, well, when you are, let me know.
That's quite interesting that you say that. I was talking to another healer, and we're just having a chat, a conversation, and I was talking about my journey, about how many different modalities I've tried and whatnot. And she said, well, it's like an onion. And she said that you may think that some of this has been useless, but it hasn't. And she said, when I have clients who come to me and this is their the first step in their journey, because what she does is fairly out there and very intense, she says, if this is the first step in their journey, I will say to them, you're not ready. You're going to have to go back and do a little bit more work on yourself, because this is intense. And I was very surprised, because I had never heard a healer say that I actually will refuse business if that client is not ready, because I only work with people. She said, those are her words, the same words as yours. I only work with people who are sick and tired, and they are ready. Whatever it takes, they're ready.
As Alan Watts famously said once, he said, with some people, he goes, you've got to chuck them in the water. He said, but they're not ready to go in. So they're going to want to learn all about diving. And they're going to buy books about diving. They're going to read up about it. They're going to learn the right posture, buy the right attire, and make sure the weather and everything's perfect for dive. You know, and they're going to study it and look at it. And really, someone needs to come and kick them up the butt and just chuck them in, because some people need to prepare for the water. They need to get ready. They need to know everything about it. You know, and if that's what it takes, then, you know, be that way. But when they come to me for coaching, I tend to say, if you're ready, if you're at that place where you've analysed yourself too much and you need some, you know, straightforward authenticity, then, you know, that's what I do best. I love being that emotional detective, that belief detective, because I don't believe anyone in the now is broken. No one needs fixing. We've just got programs running in background that doesn't support us, and when you switch them off, you get different results.
Very, very powerful. Well, David, thank you so very much. This was, again, another powerful interview with you. So I definitely love the way you were willing to be open in terms of how you used free videos on YouTube to really build a very successful business. I love the fact that we touched upon wordiness. Thank you so much for actually sharing at the beginning that you were deleting those emails, because just sharing that, I mean, you could just sort of see the psychology behind it. And again, so many of us have dealt with that.
You'd be surprised what people will do when they, and it's all a dead giveaway. You know, that should have rung alarm bells at the time, but it took a month or two before I suddenly realised, what am I doing? Why am I deleting these really nice, you know, what am I, hello, you know, I'm home. You know, it took me a while to realise, God, look what I'm doing unconsciously. I'm actually, sabotaging. Why am I doing that? What's running in background? So, you know, it sent me on a mission to find those limitations. And once I got rid of them, the business flowed much better. It was just a case of, I was the root of my own sabotage, but I forgot a few programs created a long time ago, and someone close and dear helped me identify what they were.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And again, thank you for sharing that, because as entrepreneurs, you're right that we have that mission, we have that vision, and we could jump with both feet, but sometimes we've got another program that has a whole other agenda, and until we identify it, sometimes it is difficult. And also, thank you so much for being the face of a healer. I know you don't call yourself a healer, communicator, but
well,
healer.
We are all everything, really. I am a healer to some people, and I'm a business coach to some people, and a friend.
A life coach.
Yeah. I always struggle at parties when people say, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I don't really know, because it's different with every single person, you know. It's just about, I suppose life coaching is the easiest way to describe it, but I'm best known for my EFT work on,
Yes.
on the tube.
And it's wonderful that you are an EFT practitioner, life coach, business coach, who is also very successful. I think that was really the element. It was having that chat so that other people watching this can understand it is actually possible. You can help others get to that other level in their lives and still not have to struggle. And that's really the great message with this conversation with you today.
When you can see your own sabotage and you become aware of it and you then get over yourself, it's quite easy to see other people that are sabotaging in the same way. And you know that it's nothing to do with the present. It's just a few programs they created when they were young and they can be changed. So there's nothing, no one's broken. I always say to my clients, if I took a download of your beliefs now, I'd get the same experience you're getting. The same frustration, the same feeling. I would get all of that if I took a download of your beliefs. But I can't. You're the only one that has access to what your deepest held beliefs are about yourself and worthiness and money. And when you start asking a few questions, people tend to know their core beliefs and values about money and who they learn them off, mum or granny, or, you know, things resonate, bells ring, and then as soon as you know it, you've identified a lot of the root beliefs. And once they're changed, people can be free in the present to attract what they want. And that was the missing thing in the film The Secret. They left out a key bit which says, remove limitations before you use the law of attraction. It's
not only on The Secret. A lot of people post Secret also, you know, they talk about it's out there, it's possible, yay. And that it is, but there's a big
we all have inbuilt limitations.
And until you get rid of that, it doesn't matter what you do. It's
well,
just, most
people are still blaming the government, or most people are blaming the banks for their lack of opportunity, or the government, or they're blaming the internet for not providing them with enough opportunities. I mean, I heard a stat the other day, between 2012 and 2020, 8-year period, there's 2 billion new minds coming online.
2 billion?
In the next 8 years coming online. That's children who are getting their first little iPad, or, you know, it's huge number of new connections over the next 8 years, and people say there's no profit to be made online, there's no market. Well, these 2 billion new internet users over the next 8 years will want information, they will want to trade, they will want to learn and be educated.
Wow.
That's huge potential.
A huge potential. Actually, it's interesting that you say that, because there's another statistic that says between up till the year 2020, there are a number of very large and prominent, the top companies, top Fortune 500, I actually think it's top Fortune 100 companies that are looking at the 1 billion market, and the 1 billion market are women. Women who are entering business, women who are now at very high level positions in corporations, not only in North America and Europe, but also developing countries. And some corporations are actually seeing them as important as a market such as China or India, which both have over 1 billion. So again, that's another huge market, huge opportunity. So there are opportunities, you're right.
The opportunity I see for other healers and other practitioners and other coaches out there and other people that are working from home is that once you overcome your own limitations, you see the marketplace very differently. You don't see it as closed and tough and I've got to fight to make a living. That's what comes with, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not deserving, or we've got stuff going on with money from our background we're not aware. When that's running in background, you know, life is tough. Money is the rogue out there and everything's, you know, quite a challenge. But it is just a case of, I say to people, we are biological computers, and since we're conceived, our minds start creating thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and our unconscious mind encodes all that information. And some of that information is harsh criticism of ourselves when we were 2, 3, 4, 5. If your mummy wouldn't give you an extra biscuit at 3, whose fault was it? Yours for not being good enough, or mum for being tight with her biscuits? But as a 3-year-old, you'll blame yourself and you'll say, she didn't give me an extra one because I'm no good. And if you tell yourself that enough times when you're 3 over biscuits or stuff, then you'll start to believe that you're not good enough as everybody else. And by the time you get to school, you just want to hide, you know. But it's about when the belief changed from I am worthy to I'm not, and it's usually in those early years. So you identify those roots and get rid of them, then the sabotage stops. Because we don't consciously sabotage, do we?
I don't think anybody
We don't
does.
think, oh, I'm just going to throw this opportunity
I don't
away.
think, and that's why I've had a conversation with somebody on Facebook who was very critical of people. It's like, oh, everybody should start their business, and the people who aren't, they're just lazy and sitting on a sofa and they're just lazy. And I said, you know what, you know, thank you so much for sharing your opinion, but I think it's a slightly more complicated than that. I don't think anybody starts out life thinking, I really want to be mediocre. I really, really want to be mediocre. But some people, even though they have the best intentions, until they realize there's something else driving, and some people don't have that opportunity to have access to the knowledge, information, and some people don't even know that you're out there on YouTube. And when you don't even have that going on for yourself, then perhaps the only thing you could do, you think that you could do over the weekends is you know, crash on your sofa and watch the tally from morning to night. And that was my conversation. Of course, the person didn't reply, but I'm very critical when people say, oh, people are lazy and whatnot. And there are people, but I think that it's so much more complicated. And that
I say to people, look what you're achieving considering that's running in background. Imagine if it was turned off. Imagine what you could do then, because most people who, you know, who complain, they've actually not got bad lives. They're not on the breadline. The wolves aren't at the door. They're attracting enough to cover their basic needs, but there's no excess. There's no abundance, you know. And I know loads of coaches that have bills of X amount, and their coaching is the same amount, you see. And year in, year out, they're covering themselves, but they're not thriving. They're just getting by. They have this attitude of maintain rather than expand. And I try and just help people make them aware of this sabotage is unconscious. You're not consciously aware of it.
Absolutely.
But a month later, you'll look back and go, oh, I can see why I sabotaged that now. Or I can see why.
That's the thing. It's like when you can look back and go, oh.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yes. Yes. Or even as you get to be more knowledgeable, I know that sometimes I'll catch myself and I think, whoa, where did that come from? But before, it would just keep running. It would just go downhill from where it started. But now I actually have the consciousness to go, whoa, I don't know where that came from, but it's going back.
We're like biological computers, and we've got a few little programs running that conflict with abundance. And we don't know they're running. So we're striving forward for abundance, going, God, this is bloody tough. There's all these brick walls keep popping up in front of me. How many more brick walls? For God's sake, this abundance thing. But what we don't realise is we're only fighting ourselves because we set a belief going years ago and we don't remember. And that belief said, oh, I'm not very good with money, or life's tough, or something. And then years later, we're going, life's not tough, consciously, but then your ego says unconsciously, it is. Because the ego is the protector of the beliefs. When you install a belief, no matter whether it's right or wrong for you, the ego's job is just, right, I'll enforce it. And if you tell your belief system that you're unworthy, then the ego is going to protect that. So if someone throws you a compliment, the ego is going to say, that's rubbish. They're not talking about you. And that's what my ego said to me on YouTube years ago. Oh, you want to delete that? That's rubbish. They've made it up. It's not about you. But I didn't realise at the time my ego was just defending a belief I put in. So I say to people, you know, if you want to turn off the negative chatter, you have to listen to it first and go, okay, what belief or limitation is my ego actually defending in this moment? Why is he talking or she talking down to me? Now, your ego protects your beliefs. If you've got a supporting belief, your ego talks nicely to you. But if you've got a limiting belief, your ego will bark at you. So you have a belief you can drive a car. If I threaten that, your ego will bark at me. So if I say to you, oh, you might pass your test, but you're still probably a bad driver. Your ego's going to go, I ain't having that. You tell him, go on, you tell him how good you are at driving. Go on, stick up for yourself. Because you have a positive belief that you're a good driver. So I can accuse you of being a bad driver. So I bet you can't parallel park. Your ego will say, I'm not having that. You tell him, go on, jump in. Now, your ego is defending your belief about driving, you see. And it'll make you strong, it'll make you assertive and confident, and you'll stand your ground. In the same breath, the ego does that if the belief is negative. And I say to you, you're a fabulous person, would you like to come to this party? The ego will say, nah, you're rubbish, stay in.
You want me at your party? No way.
Because I'm offering you something that might make you feel worthy in some way. So the ego says, hang on, I've got a belief that says the opposite. So don't go, it's going to be rubbish, waste of time, stay in, wash your hair, watch TV, you know, read a book, just don't do anything that could, you know, threaten your cozy little life. And what the ego is actually doing is just protecting a belief that's unworthy. Once the belief changes, the ego says, right, go on, get out to that party, go on. There's nothing on telly, get out, go on, out you go. So when we hear negative chatter, it's just, I always say to myself, as soon as I hear negative chatter, I close my eyes and I go, okay, this negative chatter, what belief is my ego protecting? Why is he barking at me? Why is he telling me not to do something or it's going to work out rubbish? What's he protecting? Now, when he talks nice to me, when he says, go on, go out and have a nice time, or something else, I know he's protecting a positive belief. But it's like when you install a negative program, you install a negative voice with it. And when you install a positive program, you sort of install a positive version of you with it. And if you try and conflict with it, you argue with yourself. And that's the little voice in the head. 1 minute it's supporting you,
and the other one is just crushing you. Yeah, yeah.
Well, the one that's beating you up, that's protecting your limitations. And if you think to yourself, well, why am I talking down to myself? Is it connected to business or money? Ah, what's it telling me? Because when I listen to my negative self-talk, I instantly get an insight into what program it must be trying to protect. Because the emotional guard dog that is the ego, it only barks when something's in conflict, when something's been triggered.
I see.
So if you feel unworthy and I throw you a compliment, triggers the emotional guard dog says, oh, I'm not having that. You tell him that you don't want to do this project, and tell him that you're busy and you've got other stuff going on, and you know, and then you'll give a polite decline, and that opportunity might close. You see.
I see.
Whereas if a belief of worthiness was running, and I say to you, oh, I've got a joint venture for you, it might be profitable, your ego is going to say, oh, that sounds good. You can make time for that. Do it, and you'll then verbalise, yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. And you won't make any excuses, because it's the belief that determines how the internal chatter talks to you. And if it's negative, it's protecting a negative belief. If it's positive, it's protecting a positive belief.
And I guess that's why they say that your thoughts is really what creates your world, because it starts here, and then depending on how we react,
our beliefs
say yes or no to opportunities, and that's why we sometimes feel like we're, you know, living the same year after year after year, even though, you know, we feel we're, you know, making all these efforts, but nothing changes simply because.
But going back to the belief system, you know, if you'd have dropped out of your car learning and never passed your test, but you had a sort of mild belief that you can drive, but actually not qualified, if I then threatened that belief and said, but you probably can't parallel park, or you're probably no good as a driver, the ego would probably give in on that and say, well, he's got a point, hasn't he?
He's got a point. Very
because the belief is not 100% that you're a good driver, you passed your test, and you don't have that much evidence of driving alone and having good experiences. So you can always tell, you know, if you say to somebody in jest, or, but you know, they will either defend it assertively and confidently, because you can tell the ego's in their head going, go on, get stuck in. You know, stand up for yourself. So you can always tell in someone's attitude about something what belief they're running on. And all I do with my clients is help point out which ones they're running on and which ones support them and which ones don't.
Well, David, this after interviews piece was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so very much. Talking to you,
it's been a pleasure.
We almost could do a live for like half an afternoon and never even touch you know, I mean, we won't be only touching the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this topic, so vast and so important. But again, thank you so very much for all
it's been a pleasure.
insight that you shared today.
It's been a pleasure. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Take care.